Hello everyone, welcome back. I want to talk to you guys today about this new gun ban in Pittsburgh. And Pennsylvania is my home state, so this is a little bit more personal to me than other gun restrictions that have passed in other states. Basically, I saw a post on the internet where a guy was saying, "I live in Pittsburgh, and what am I supposed to do now?" So this is the reply I gave to him. I'll tell you guys what I told him, and then we'll talk about it. I'll break it down for you guys. I wrote, if you comply with gun control that you know to be illegal in your state and unconstitutional, then it is certain that you, number one, will never take up arms to defend liberty. Number two, will turn over anybody to be tortured and killed to save your own skin. Number three, have condemned you, yourself, and your family to slavery. One day you will either arm your children and lead them into battle for liberty, or put shackles on them and turn them in for slavery. If you turn in your AR-15 and magazines now, you know what choice you will make. I'm not judging you. I'm giving you a criteria to judge yourself. Okay, that's what my post was, and let's break it down. I tell him that if he's complying with a law that he knows to be illegal and unconstitutional. Now, in the state of basically there's three levels of violation of the law here. Number one is at the constitutional level, the federal constitutional level. Basically, this is contrary to the Second Amendment. Okay. Secondly, it violates the Pennsylvania Constitution. The Pennsylvania state constitution says that the right to bear arms shall not be questioned. Okay, so in some respects, it might be even a little bit more clear and direct and to the point than the Second Amendment. Okay, so it says, Pennsylvania Constitution says that the right to bear arms shall not be questioned. Okay, and number three, in Pennsylvania, there's a law that says that municipalities, right, and cities and townships, they cannot pass gun control that is more restrictive than the states. Okay. So there's three levels of violation here. Okay, this law that they passed in Pittsburgh is legal at three different levels. So there's no question here that it's wrong, it's unconstitutional, it's illegal. Even the people that wrote this law, all right, and voted for it, are themselves questioning the legality of it. Okay. So that's the first thing to put out there. Okay, this is a law that is unconstitutional and will most likely be overturned. Within the state Supreme Court. Okay. However, if you comply with a law that you know to be wrong at three different levels, okay, then I say number one, you will never ever take up arms to defend liberty. Okay, because let's face it. If you're if you turn in your AR-15s and your magazines and your ammo and whatever else they want to take from you, okay, obviously if there ever is a cause worth fighting for, right, you simply won't be able to fight it because you are unarmed. Okay, and secondly, if you're not willing to stand up to a law that is illegal at three different levels. If you're not willing to take that risk, you won't do it when the stakes are higher. Okay, to put it bluntly. Okay, there's very little risk here with not complying with this law. And if you don't, if you comply now, you will most certainly comply, at some later point, when they are, threatening you with, lengthy jail sentences or perhaps even execution. Okay, because you don't know what the future is going to be like. Okay, so number two, I say, you will turn over anybody to be tortured and killed to save your skin. And the example here is let's look at at the Nazis during World War II. Okay, when the Nazis occupied a particular land, what they did is they went from door to door, questioning the people, wanting to know where the Jews were, where the gypsies were, where the homosexuals were, and the other people that they were after. Okay, the Nazis received this information from the people. Okay, and the fact is that the majority of the people did in fact turn over the Jews. They did turn over the homosexuals. They did turn over the gypsies. Okay, so the fact is that the majority of the people did comply, and the risk, the reason was because the risk was so much higher. If you were hiding Jews, they probably executed. If they caught you hiding Jews, they probably executed you and your whole family. Okay, so if you're not going to resist, illegal gun control now, you certainly are not going to do it when they're threatening you and your family. Okay. So that was the second part of my, the second point I put up. And then number 3, you have condemned yourself and your family to slavery, okay? Because ultimately what's going to happen is, the nature of socialism is that basically everybody is going to be working for the government, okay? And what happens is, the nature of socialism is because there's very little incentive to actually produce and to work better. Ultimately, the only incentive that socialism is able to put forth is risk of death. Okay, and we see this in in the Soviet Union. Okay, basically. Stalin had no qualms about executing people. In fact, he kept alive only the number of people that were useful to him. Okay, if he didn't have enough food, that was not a problem. He just reduced the population to a level that he could feed. Okay, so ultimately, basically, you will end up a slave. And there's many forms of slavery. You could very well end up as a serf. Okay, the difference between slavery and serfdom is, with slavery, basically, you typically are selling off people. There's a slave market. Serfdom was actually a much more successful method of slavery. The problem with slavery is that slaves don't reproduce very well. You're working them to death. In a true slavery, okay, if you look at like Roman slavery, where they worked people in the mines, they basically worked them to death, okay, and then they were able to replace them with new slaves through battle. Okay, that's true slavery. As opposed to serfdom. With serfdom, basically you keep the family units together because basically they're able to reproduce. All right, and basically that's how you get your next generation of serfs. But in reality, they are basically slaves with the benefit of that they're able to reproduce, which is for the benefit of the landowner, or the land baron, or whatever you want to call him. So that's most likely where you're going to end up. And serfdom can take on many forms. For example, in medieval serfdom, you only allowed the people to keep a minimum amount of food to feed themselves. Okay. Well, in modern day serfdom, what you do is you simply tax people 95%. Which means that they're only going to be able to keep enough money to feed themselves. So you pretty much accomplish the same goal through taxation. Okay. So there are the 3 points that I brought out and what they mean. Okay, and then I told the guy that basically one day you're going to have a choice. You're either going to arm your children and lead them into battle. Okay, or put shackles on them and turn them in for slavery. And I specifically mentioned the children. Okay, because it's a lot easier for somebody to take the position that I will fight to the death. Okay. Because it's just your life. I mean, take me for example. Let's say I'm 47 years old. I mean, I only have so many years ahead of me, right? Most of my life is behind me. If I go into battle and I end up dead, I mean, what I lose another 15, 20 years. I already had the best years are already behind me. Okay, but when you talk about the children, that's a much more difficult position to take. That you're willing to risk the lives of your children, and ultimately, a person has to decide: would I rather risk the lives of my children, having them fight for liberty, or would I rather keep them safe, put the shackles on them, turn them in for slavery because they promise that they'll take care of them and they'll keep them alive. Once they take them, they can do whatever they want with them. They don't have to keep any of their promises. If you have a year where you have a very bad crop across a large area, and they can't afford to feed off the slave, they can't afford to feed all the slaves. They're basically going to kill off all the extra slaves and just keep enough slaves, keep the amount of slaves alive that they can feed through the winter. Okay, so that's the reality of slavery. It's just like I have 100. I went into the last winter with 130 chickens. Okay, in the fall, basically I butchered 30 chickens because basically I didn't want to feed those 30 chickens through the winter. I only wanted to have 100 chickens. Okay, so that's what slavery is. You basically get treated as a chicken. All right? Let's see, what did I tell the guy down there? So basically, if you turn on your AR-15s and your magazines, you know what choice you will make. Okay, there's no possibility that if you turn over your arms, your guns, your magazines, your ammunition, if you turn it over now, there's no possibility that you would ever fight in the future. Number one, because you obviously don't have the equipment, so you can't fight. And number two, you don't have the mindset for it. Okay, if you're complying if you're complying at a point in time when it's there's very little risk to not complying, later on when these stakes are much higher, if you're complying now, you're certainly going to comply then. Okay, when they're threatening you with death and threatening to kill your family, you are not going to decide that you're going to fight then if you're complying now. All right. So, and like I said, basically I told the guy this: I'm not judging you. You judge yourself. I'm just giving you a criteria to judge yourself by. Now here's the thing. You might come to me and say, hey, listen, I have a family, I have kids, I got toddlers, I got infants that depend on me. I can't do the things that you want. And here's the thing: I am not telling anybody to go start a one-man war. You're going to lose that. At this point in the game, you will lose that for sure. Give the court system a chance to work. Give the political system a chance to work. We still have a lot of possibilities. There's a lot of things that we can still do. So by all means, give all that a chance to work. But what I'm telling you guys to do is, especially with a law that is very questionable, do not comply. Okay. Keep your guns, keep your magazines, keep your ammunition, and there's two purposes for this. Like I said earlier, if you give it up, then you don't have the ability. It's not possible for you to at some point in the future change your mind and say, hey, you know what, things are, this is worth fighting for. You don't have that choice. But the other thing to be aware of is that, hey, listen, you might be in a situation that because of your age, because of some handicap or some disability, okay, you might be in a position where you cannot fight. Even if it's the worst dictator in history, even if Hitler or Stalin come back and take over the United States, and you really want to fight, you might not be able to fight because of your physical condition. But here's the thing: if you have your equipment, okay, you're now in a position to arm and support others, which is just as important. Okay. And if you think about it, during the American Revolution, only 3% of the colonists actively fought in the American Revolution, but they were supported by 30% of the colonists. Okay, so the 30% that didn't fight, but supported that 3%, they were just as important. Okay, they played a very important role. Now, granted, 30% of the colonists, they were loyal to the British, and many of them actually fought for the British, okay? And then you had 40% in the middle that just didn't give a shit either way. So what I'm asking you guys to do is not be part, certainly don't be part of the 30% that supports the British or the tyrants or the dictators, okay? But don't be part of that 40% that doesn't give a shit. At least be part of the 30% that will at least support those that would be willing to fight against the dictatorship or tyranny, okay? So there's a few things for you guys to think about. My best wishes to the people of Pittsburgh. I hope they get through this. I hope this unconstitutional law is quickly overturned. And I wish everyone peace and prosperity. Give the video a thumbs up. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you guys next time.